Script title: Millions sleep like this every night. Could it be affecting your heart? 89% of adults sleep in a position that physically changes the shape of their heart on an EKG monitor. You probably fell asleep exactly like this last night, completely unaware that your cardiovascular system was working overtime just to pump blood against gravity. In this video, we're breaking down exactly what gravity and your mattress are doing to your cardiovascular system right now. Stick around, because by the end, I'm going to show you the exact sleep setup cardiologists recommend to physically lower your blood pressure overnight. But you can't skip ahead, because if you sleep in the one wildly popular position we cover in a minute, you might actually be sending your heart into fight or flight mode without even waking up. We spend a third of our lives completely unconscious. We assume our bodies are resting, recovering, and resetting for the next day. But mechanically, inside your chest cavity, your heart is a pump fighting against physics, gravity, and the heavy weight of your own ribcage. The exact angle of your body at 2 in the morning either soothes your heart muscle or secretly stresses it out. So, how does your sleep posture actually change the way your blood flows? But to understand why your heart hates your favorite sleeping position, we first need to look at what happens the second your head hits the pillow. Your heart never gets a break. It's the hardest working muscle in your entire body. Every single day, your heart pumps about 2,000 gallons of blood. That's roughly the capacity of a small backyard swimming pool, pushed through miles of blood vessels every 24 hours. During the day, while you stand, sit, and walk around, gravity constantly pulls your blood down toward your legs and feet. Your heart has to work against that downward pull, squeezing hard enough to push blood all the way back up to your lungs and your brain. Then, night comes. You get into bed and lie flat. The exact second you go horizontal, the rules of physics change. Gravity stops pulling blood down to your feet. Suddenly, a massive volume of fluid that was hanging out in your lower body has a flat, easy path straight back to your chest. We call this a fluid shift. A huge amount of venous blood rushes back into the right side of your heart. Suddenly, your heart has to handle a much larger volume of blood per beat. This is why you often feel the need to pee shortly after lying down. Your heart senses the extra fluid volume, stretches a little bit, and sends a signal to your kidneys to filter out some water to reduce the pressure. Now, a healthy heart expects a specific biological event to happen at night. We call it nocturnal dipping. When you sleep, your blood pressure is supposed to drop by 10 to 20%. This dip is how your blood vessels heal. It's how your heart muscle recovers from the stress of the day. The sheer force of blood pushing against your artery walls decreases, giving the endothelial cells lining your blood vessels a chance to repair any micro-tears. If your heart doesn't get this dip, your risk of cardiovascular issues skyrockets. People whose blood pressure stays high at night, known as non-dippers, face a massively increased risk of heart attacks and strokes. And here's where your sleeping position comes into play. To get that nocturnal dip, your heart needs the least amount of mechanical resistance possible. Let's look at the pure anatomical reality of your chest. Your heart isn't perfectly centered. Most people think it sits right behind the breastbone, but it actually sits slightly to the left. It also isn't glued into place. Your heart is suspended inside your chest cavity by a network of ligaments and surrounded by a protective sac called the pericardium. It hangs there, suspended between your lungs. Because it hangs, it can swing. It can shift. It can rotate based on how you angle your body. This brings us to the first major sleeping position, and it's a wildly popular one. Let's talk about the left side dilemma, or what we can call the gravity shift. Sleeping on your left side physically alters the heart's position inside your chest. When you roll onto your left side, gravity pulls your heart downward, shifting it toward your left ribcage. Because the heart is suspended and sitting slightly left to begin with, lying on your left side gives gravity the ultimate mechanical advantage to pull the heart out of its neutral position. Studies using electrocardiograms or EKGs show this happening in real time. When researchers attach electrodes to a person's chest and have them roll onto their left side, the electrical activity of the heart looks entirely different on the monitor. The electrical vectors actually change direction. Why? Because the physical mass of the heart has rotated and shifted downward. Think about it like a heavy water balloon resting in a hammock. If the hammock is perfectly flat, the water balloon sits in the middle, stable and balanced. But if you tilt the hammock sharply to the left, that water balloon rolls, shifting its weight and pressing hard against the side of the fabric. That's exactly what your heart does against your left lung and ribcage. Because the heart shifts and sits flush against the chest wall, left side sleepers can often physically hear and feel their own heartbeat in their mattress. You lie there in the quiet of your bedroom, and you can feel the rhythmic thumping vibrating through the pillow or the mattress springs. This might seem harmless, but that subtle, constant thumping can actually keep your brain in a state of hyperarousal. Your nervous system detects the heavy mechanical beating against the ribs, which can cause micro-awakenings. You might not fully wake up, but your brain never drops into those deep restorative stages of sleep because it's constantly monitoring that physical sensation. If you're a left side sleeper and your mind is a little blown right now, hit that like button and subscribe. We've got a lot more weird body mechanics to cover, and we're just getting started. So, gravity pulls the heart on the left side, changing its electrical axis and causing it to thump against the ribs. That sounds bad enough, right? Wait until you see what happens when you roll over onto your right side. Rolling onto your right side creates a completely different biomechanical environment for your cardiovascular system. We can call this the right side relief, or the vagus nerve secret. When you lie on your right side, your heart doesn't shift nearly as much. Why? Because of your lungs. Your right lung is actually larger than your left lung. It has 3 lobes, while your left lung only has 2, to make room for the heart. When you lie on your right side, the larger right lung acts like a giant, soft cushion. Gravity tries to pull the heart down, but the right lung holds the heart securely in place. The heart stays suspended in a much more stable, neutral position. The electrical axis on an EKG remains completely normal. The water balloon stays perfectly balanced in the hammock. But holding the heart in place is only half the magic of sleeping on your right side. This position also triggers a massive neurological advantage. It heavily stimulates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the superhighway of your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and digest system. It runs from your brain, down through your neck, and directly connects to your heart and digestive organs. When you sleep on your right side, the physical positioning and the specific way your lungs expand put a gentle, rhythmic pressure on the vagus nerve. This stimulation acts like a brake pedal for your heart. It sends a signal directly to the heart's natural pacemaker, telling it to slow down. Your heart rate drops. Your blood pressure drops. That nocturnal dip we talked about earlier? It happens much more easily on the right side. Think about the difference like this. Sleeping on your right side is like putting your car in park on a perfectly flat driveway. The car is stable. The engine is idling low. The brakes don't have to do any work. Sleeping on your left side is like leaving the car in neutral on a slight hill. It might not roll away, but the internal mechanics are under tension. The brakes have to do a little bit of work all night long just to hold the car in place. Here's the most fascinating proof of this mechanic. Medical observation studies have looked at people with severe heart conditions, specifically congestive heart failure. These are people whose hearts are enlarged, weak, and struggling to pump blood efficiently. Researchers noticed a wild trend. Patients with congestive heart failure will almost universally, subconsciously avoid sleeping on their left side. When doctors ask them why they avoid the left side, the patients usually don't know. They just say it feels uncomfortable, or they feel a bit breathless. But their autonomic nervous system knows exactly what's happening. The brain detects that when they lie on the left side, the enlarged heart shifts, squishing the lungs and making it physically harder to pump blood and absorb oxygen. The brain forces them to roll over to the right side to protect the heart. They instinctively seek the vagus nerve stimulation and the structural support of the right lung. Their bodies naturally choose the path of least resistance. So we know the left side shifts the heart out of place, and the right side cradles it and slows down the heart rate. But what about the back? Sleeping on your back is often heavily promoted by dermatologists to prevent face wrinkles, and by chiropractors to keep the spine straight. But for your heart, sleeping flat on your back can be an absolute disaster. We can call this the dead man's pose, and it's a source of massive invisible stress. The danger of back sleeping all comes down to the airway. When you lie flat on your back, gravity pushes straight down on the front of your neck and face. As your muscles completely relax during sleep, gravity pulls your lower jaw backward. It pulls your tongue backward. It pulls the soft palate at the roof of your mouth down into the back of your throat. This creates a severe bottleneck for oxygen. The airway narrows. Even if you don't have full-blown sleep apnea, back sleeping causes slight airway resistance in almost everyone. You might start to snore. Snoring is simply the sound of turbulent air forcing its way through a collapsed, narrowed tube. Now, let's look at what this airway resistance does to your heart. When the airway collapses even a tiny bit, the amount of oxygen entering your lungs drops. The oxygen saturation in your blood, your SpO2, starts to tick downward. Your blood becomes slightly more acidic as carbon dioxide builds up. Special sensors in your brain and your blood vessels, called chemoreceptors, immediately detect this drop in oxygen and spike in carbon dioxide. The brain panics. It thinks you're suffocating. It assumes you're choking to death in the dark. To save your life, the brain hits the emergency alarm. It sends a lightning-fast signal to your adrenal glands, which sit right on top of your kidneys. The adrenal glands instantly dump a massive dose of adrenaline and cortisol directly into your bloodstream. This adrenaline hits your heart like a freight train. Within seconds, your heart rate spikes from a calm 60 beats per minute up to 90, 100, or even 120 beats per minute. Your blood vessels constrict violently. Your blood pressure shoots through the roof. Your brain wakes you up just enough to gasp for air, open the airway, and get some oxygen. We call these microarousals. The crazy part is, you usually have absolutely no memory of them. You can have 30, 40, or 50 of these adrenaline spikes every single hour while sleeping on your back. You spend the entire night fighting for air, your heart redlining over and over again. Think about it like kinking a running garden hose. Water is flowing smoothly, and then you fold the hose in half. The flow stops. The pressure builds up violently behind the kink. The pump pushing the water strains against the blockage. That's exactly what's happening to your heart when your tongue falls back into your throat. Your heart is the pump, straining against a kinked system, desperately trying to push oxygenated blood to a brain that's slowly suffocating. You wake up 8 hours later feeling completely exhausted, with a racing heart, a dry mouth, and a headache, thinking you just had a bad night of sleep. In reality, your cardiovascular system just ran a marathon while you were paralyzed in bed. Over the years, this constant nightly adrenaline dump damages the endothelial lining of your arteries, stiffens the heart muscle, and drastically increases the risk of hypertension and arrhythmias. If you know someone who sleeps on their back and snores like a freight train, send them this video. And while you're at it, drop a comment below with your go-to sleep position. I'm curious how many of you are accidentally doing this. And the reason why those people woke up with a racing heart? You won't believe it, but it has nothing to do with nightmares. It's entirely mechanical. It's gravity pulling the tongue down and the brain dumping adrenaline to save the body. So back sleeping creates massive oxygen stress, and left side sleeping physically shifts the heart. What about sleeping on your stomach? Stomach sleeping is arguably the worst possible position for your entire musculoskeletal system, but its effect on your cardiovascular system is specifically brutal. We can call this the stomach sleeper's neck twist, and it's a massive vital spiker. When you sleep on your stomach, you can't sleep with your face planted straight down into the mattress, or you would suffocate. You have to turn your head completely to one side. You're forcing your cervical spine, your neck into an extreme 90-degree rotation, and you hold it there for hours at a time. Try doing that right now. Turn your head as far as it will possibly go to the right, and just hold it there. You can feel the intense stretching and tension in the muscles and ligaments on the opposite side of your neck. Now imagine holding that exact twisted position for 6 straight hours. Inside your neck, you have massive blood vessels. You have the carotid arteries carrying highly oxygenated blood up to your brain, and you have the jugular veins carrying deoxygenated blood back down to your heart. You also have the vertebral arteries threading right through the bones of your cervical spine. When you twist your neck 90 degrees, you physically compress and pinch these major blood vessels. You increase the resistance in the tubes. Remember, the heart is a pump. If the tubes leading out of the pump are suddenly narrowed and twisted, the pump has to work significantly harder to push the same amount of fluid through. Your heart has to increase its contracting force just to push blood up into your brain against the resistance of your twisted neck. It's exactly like trying to drink a thick milkshake through a straw that is bent completely in half. You have to suck incredibly hard to get anything through the bend. Your heart is doing that exact same mechanical labor, pushing blood through twisted carotid arteries all night long. But the neck twist isn't the only problem with stomach sleeping. Stomach sleeping also severely compromises your breathing mechanics. When you lie flat on your stomach, the entire weight of your torso is pressing down on your ribcage and your diaphragm. Your lungs expand by pushing the ribs outward and the diaphragm downward. But when you're lying on your stomach, your ribs are pinned against the mattress. They can't fully expand. Because your ribs can't expand, your tidal volume drops. Tidal volume is the amount of air you take in with each normal breath. Because you're taking in less air per breath, less oxygen enters your bloodstream. Your body still needs the same amount of oxygen to keep your organs alive, so how does it compensate for the smaller breaths? It forces the heart to beat faster. If the blood has less oxygen in it, the heart has to pump that blood around more times per minute to deliver the required amount of oxygen to the tissues. So, the stomach sleeper is dealing with a double threat. The twisted neck creates high blood pressure and vascular resistance, and the compressed rib cage creates a low oxygen environment that forces a high resting heart rate. The heart gets absolutely no rest. It spends the whole night pushing under-oxygenated blood through pinched vessels. So, we know the left side squishes the heart and the back restricts the airway. But the craziest part is still coming, because the perfect position actually depends on one weird trick with a pillow. Let's look at a real-world example that proves exactly how sensitive the heart is to posture. Back in 2003, a major biomedical engineering study decided to test this exact concept. Researchers took a group of completely healthy subjects with zero history of heart disease. They hooked these healthy people up to high-tech EKG machines and simply had them change sleeping positions on a bed. The researchers watched the electrical readouts in real time. When the subjects lay flat on their backs, the EKG looked normal. When they rolled onto their right sides, the EKG looked perfectly normal. But when the subjects rolled onto their left sides, the EKG readouts went crazy. The electrical axis shifted so dramatically that if a doctor looked at the printout without knowing the patient's position, they would have diagnosed the healthy patient with a minor heart block or a right bundle branch block. The electrical signals looked erratic, simply because the physical mass of the heart had tilted away from the electrodes due to gravity. The heart's electrical system is a finely tuned network of nodes and pathways. The sinoatrial node fires an electrical spark, which travels down through the atria, hits the atrioventricular node, and travels down into the ventricles to trigger a massive squeeze. When the heart's physical position tilts, those electrical pathways stretch and shift. The vectors change. The 2003 study proved that merely rolling onto your left side is enough to drastically alter the electrical map of your heart. Add that to the heart failure instinct we talked about earlier. People with enlarged, struggling hearts instinctively refuse to sleep on their left sides. Their autonomic nervous systems force them onto their right sides to prevent the physical shifting and to keep the lungs from compressing the heart muscle. The body knows exactly what the heart needs, even if the conscious brain doesn't. Before I show you the exact pillow setup that takes all the pressure off your heart, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next deep dive into human biology. So, what's the ultimate, cardiologist-approved, biomechanically perfect position for your heart? The big reveal is right-side sleeping. Statistically and anatomically, the right side is the most heart-neutral position you can choose. It keeps the heart supported by the larger right lung. It prevents the heart from physically shifting and rotating. It keeps the electrical axis perfectly stable. It prevents the heavy thumping against the rib cage. It prevents the airway collapse associated with back sleeping. It prevents the twisted neck arteries associated with stomach sleeping. And most importantly, it stimulates the vagus nerve, actively engaging the parasympathetic nervous system to slow your heart rate and lower your blood pressure, guaranteeing you get that crucial nocturnal dip. However, just rolling onto your right side isn't enough. You have to optimize the position to remove the final layers of mechanical stress on your cardiovascular system. The ultimate sleep hack isn't just the side, it's using pillows to essentially mimic zero gravity. Here's exactly how you set it up. You lie on your right side. Your head pillow needs to be exactly thick enough to keep your neck perfectly straight. If the pillow is too thin, your head tilts down, pinching the carotid artery on the lower side. If the pillow is too thick, your head tilts up, pinching the artery on the higher side. Your cervical spine must be in a perfectly straight line with your thoracic spine. But the real magic happens lower down. You must place a firm, thick pillow directly between your knees and thighs. Why does a pillow between your knees matter for your heart? It comes down to pelvic alignment and venous return. When you sleep on your side without a pillow between your knees, your top leg drops down and crosses over your bottom leg. This action pulls heavily on your pelvis, twisting your lower spine. This twist does two things. First, it creates massive muscular tension in your lower back, which keeps your nervous system slightly elevated. Second, and more importantly for your heart, twisting the pelvis puts slight mechanical pressure on the inferior vena cava. The inferior vena cava is the massive vein that runs right up the middle of your abdomen, carrying all the deoxygenated blood from your legs and lower body back up to the right atrium of your heart. If your pelvis is twisted, the surrounding muscles and tissues compress that vein ever so slightly. It increases the resistance for the blood trying to get back to the heart. By placing a firm pillow between your knees, you keep your top leg parallel to your bottom leg. Your pelvis remains perfectly open and neutral. Your lower spine stays flat. The muscular tension in your lower back completely vanishes. Because the pelvis is open and neutral, the inferior vena cava is completely uncompressed. Blood from your legs flows back up to your heart with zero physical resistance. This specific setup, sleeping on the right side, neck perfectly straight, firm pillow between the knees, gives your heart its lowest possible workload. The right lung holds the heart in place. The vagus nerve applies the brakes. The open airway ensures maximum oxygen flow. The straight neck ensures zero arterial resistance to the brain. The open pelvis ensures zero venous resistance from the legs. You've essentially created a zero-gravity environment for your cardiovascular system. The fluid dynamics are perfectly optimized. The pump doesn't have to fight against twisted hoses, kinked tubes, or a collapsed airway. The electrical system stays perfectly aligned. When you set your body up like this, your heart rate plummets into the low 50s or even 40s. Your blood pressure easily achieves that 20% nocturnal dip. The endothelial cells lining your arteries get the low-pressure environment they need to heal the microtears caused by the high stress of your daily life. Your brain registers the deep safety of the open airway and the stable heartbeat, allowing you to plunge into the deepest, most restorative stages of delta wave sleep. Think back to that EKG monitor and the 89% of people stressing their hearts out every single night. Think about the massive fluid shift that happens the second you lie down. Your heart is an incredible, relentless machine. It has to pump 2,000 gallons of blood tomorrow while you walk, run, stress out at work, and fight gravity for 16 hours straight. It doesn't get a vacation. It doesn't get a break. The only rest it ever gets is the mechanical relief you provide it while you're unconscious. You don't need to make your heart run an obstacle course tonight. You don't need to kink the hoses, twist the arteries, and collapse the airway. Sleep isn't just a passive timeout for your body. It's a highly active, highly mechanical nightly tune-up. The angle of your ribs, the position of your jaw, the alignment of your pelvis, and the tilt of your chest cavity all dictate exactly how hard your heart has to work in the dark. Set your posture right. Grab that extra pillow. Roll onto your right side. Align your spine. Open up those blood vessels. Give the pump a break and let your heart finally get some rest.